Hi everyone, how are you? So I'm Gianfranco Papa, and I will talk about powering your Flutter apps with gRPC. So really nice to be here. Okay, so first I'm going to introduce a little bit about myself. I'm Gianfranco Papa, and I'm CTO and co-founder of Somnium Software. We are a dev shop who specializes in Flutter. We are 100% specialized in Flutter. So we are pretty much the only one that does that in LATAM. We are based in Uruguay. And yeah, I'm a Google developer expert for Dart and Flutter. I'm a software engineer who specializes in Flutter. I'm also a mentor and a speaker. And I organize the Flutter Montevideo meetup where I live. Okay, so enough about me. What is the agenda for today? Okay, the topic will be gRPC. So first, I want to start talking about the motivation for this talk, why I'm doing this talk. Then we are going to cover the whole gRPC and protocol buffers. We are going to see how to integrate this with Flutter. And I selected another advanced topic that will be like deployment with Google Cloud Run, so we can have like an end-to-end full stack app deployed in Google Cloud. Then we are going to briefly present a demo of everything, like more or less the tooling that you need to deploy your app. And finally, we will cover some conclusions and next steps, okay? Okay, so first of all, the motivation, okay? I guess that for me, that I'm used to work in a company that basically we have like lots of projects. I noticed that gRPC wasn't being used so as other protocols such as REST, GraphQL, WebSockets, or even backend as a service such as Firebase, Amplify, Supabase. And I don't know like if it is because it doesn't have like lots of information. But yeah, gRPC would be like another protocol such as REST, GraphQL that give you like different features. I would say that in terms of the age, we are talking about something that was more or less created in 2015. So at the same time of GraphQL, but RPC, in fact, is something that it has been used like for a while, even before like REST APIs, that is more like from the 2000s. And another motivation to give this talk is to think about Dart as a language that can give you the power to create full stack apps, mostly because us as Flutter developers already know Dart, right? So you can reuse that knowledge to create a full stack app, and you don't have to rely on different languages with all the disadvantages that it might have, right? So these are more or less like the motivations that took me to give this talk. So let's start from the very beginning. What is gRPC? This is the actual definition from the docs. So basically, it's a modern, open source, high performance RPC framework that can run in any environment, right? So as I said, this is like an implementation of remote procedure call that is another protocol such as HTTP and REST. But basically, this was initially developed by Google and then open sourced in 2015. And yeah, the cool thing is that it uses HTTP 2 for transport. So basically, it will give you some real cool features such as streaming, that you can get these things on REST, for example, because it uses HTTP. And the whole thing about RPC is basically calling a function that normally resides on the server, but the way you call it, it will be as if you were calling that function in the client. So you don't have to establish like a whole HTTP client, for example, if you're dealing with a REST API, to basically, I don't know, like send a request and then get the response, parse it. It will feel like really natural as you might, I don't know, use a library in Flutter. So that's really cool. And another things about gRPC is that it provides bi-directional streaming, so you will get like real cool features such as real-time capabilities. And also, we can say that encodes the whole information using protocol buffers. We're going to see like what is this. But this essentially is what made gRPC so fast. And lastly, it generates idiomatic client and server stubs that are merely proxies that will allow us to interact with the gRPC server, okay? So the cool thing about gRPC is that it supports a lot of languages. Here we have Dart, right? But what I'm trying to say here is that you could even use different languages in your backend, for example. In fact, this is like something that is used in microservices architecture because you can select your language, and using gRPC will facilitate a lot of the things to deal with different languages. So let's talk about also protocol buffers, which I mentioned earlier. Let's see what it is. Okay, this is also like the documentation, what the documentation says about protobuf. So it provides a language-neutral, platform-neutral, extensible mechanism for serializing structured data in a forward-compatible and backward-compatible way. So it's basically, from this definition, we can see that, protocol buffers or protobuffers or simply protobuf, whatever you want to call, basically provides a platform-neutral and language-neutral definition. It will be, if you're more used to deal with REST APIs, for example, it will be like the JSON, but for the gRPC, okay? So it's a way we can start communicating between, in this case, between the Flutter and the server. And the thing about protobuf is that it is slightly different from JSON, because JSON is like pretty much a text-based format, and it's really readable in a way. But because of this, it's like it provides a big message. And in terms of protobuf, it's not so readable because it's binary. But because of this, we can have like really fast interaction between the front end and the back end. Also, another thing is the schema definition. When using protobuf, we'll be able to define a single source of truth that then we're going to reuse it in any programming language that has support for that. So this is really cool because it lets you define only your, for example, your models or services in a single place, and then you don't have to worry about like code duplication in different languages. In our case, we are using only Dart, so that might not be a full benefit, but yeah, if you're using other languages, it could be handy. So where all start when using protobuf and gRPC is in the proto file. That was what I was talking about, like having a single source of truth. So basically, when using the proto file will be like a definition of your API interface, where you are going to define messages and services. Currently, we are on the 3rd version, and this is an example of how it looks like. So it has its own definition, and this will allow us to auto-generate code by only defining this proto file. So how we create these files, right? First, we start defining the syntax. We are using proto 3 for the last syntax available. Then we only need to define, for example, imagine a to-do application where we need to only grab our latest to-do. We only need to define the message. And in this case, this is the first difference that we notice, for example, with JSON. We don't have to actually define the keys and values. In this case, we only need to provide a value for every property that we need to store. And this value has to be unique, but this is going to allow us to generate that binary message in an efficient way. So we don't have to send, for example, all the keys of the JSON. In this case, we are also defining a service. That a service will be like basically the methods that gRPC will expose, so we can start interacting from the front end to the back end. So in here we have, for example, a get to do. This is the actual notation, and this will return a to do message. And also we have a get to stream that basically is streaming a to do. So this is like one of the key differences, that we are able to stream something from the server. So yeah, talking about streaming, how this all works, basically when using gRPC, you're able to either server-side streaming, that will mean that the client sends a request, but the server is spamming the client with multiple responses. But you can also do it backwards, like the client could start streaming messages and the server will respond with a single message. And also you can, this is a little bit tricky, but you can also have that bidirectional streaming, so both the client and the server will start streaming information using the same channel that, as we're using HTTP2, is possible because it's not stateless. And yeah, I mean, the other code will be the unary code that is like just request response, right? So no streaming there. Okay, so in the product file, how this is implemented. So basically, we need to define, for example, a unitary call that is a request response. So in there, we only need to define RPC because it's a method of the service. To get the to-do, we need to also provide the request that will be the get to-do ID request, and then we simply return the to-do. In the case of server-side streaming, we will need to only add the keyword stream to the method. Again, for the client will be the same, but in the request. And if we want to client-server stream, like have bidirectional streaming, we need to add stream in both the request and the response. So really easy. And how does all of this integrate to Flutter, right? So how can we start using gRPC and connect it with Flutter? Well, first, we will need to grab the whole proto files that I stored in the proto folder. We're going to see in the demo where it's located. But using the proto compiler, we are going to generate all of the necessary code. For example, in this case, Dart. Dart classes, we will have, for example, a to-do.dart, and there you will have all of the normal methods, such as the constructor, the copy with, and all of the normal methods that we define in a model. And then we also have like the services that will be auto-generated. So all of the things that we were talking about, like server-side streaming and so on, we'll have those methods available to communicate with the server. So the only thing we need to do when integrating Flutter with gRPC is establish this client channel connection. So we will need to have the base URL. This could be either localhost or something that you have deployed in your backend. Then we need to define the port. And also the channel options that this will mean, for example, if we are using SSL for the secure connection. So in this case, we are using, and we specify secure, but if you're running your server in localhost, probably you might do it like in an insecure way. And then once you have this channel, you only need to put it inside your stub. That will be what we were talking about, like the stub will be the proxy that will allow us to communicate and expose those methods that are available in the gRPC server. And yeah, another more advanced concepts, because we are covering like really something more for the beginners, will be, for example, interceptors. If you want, of course, to authenticate your service, any service might be authenticated, you might use interceptors. Then for the communication, you might use gzip or JSON. So you can explore these topics more advanced. Also, the SSL support that we were talking about to establish a secure connection. In the case of the web support, this is slightly tricky because as we were talking about that it relies on HTTP2. Basically, not all browsers support this new version. So you will have to have more workarounds on this, such as having a proxy and using Envoy, for example. And then one thing I want to cover more advanced today is the gRPC server deployment. And we are going to actually talk about Cloud Run, so we can have that full example with Flutter, gRPC, and Cloud Run, everything in GCP. And okay, so let's cover the deployment. We could cover like more topics, but yeah, we are limited on time. So basically, for the deployment, I prepared a demo like using Cloud Run. That is a service of the GCP that allows you to deploy highly scalable containerized applications. So for this, I think it's really handy to know a little bit more about what is Docker and what are containers. But basically, Cloud Run it has a serverless architecture. So basically, what you need to provide is a way in which you use a container. You put your server in a container using Docker, for example, and then it will be really easy to deploy this in Cloud Run. You could even deploy it in any server that is supporting Docker, right, that has Docker pre-installed. But the cool thing about Cloud Run is that it will provide you auto-scaling and downscaling depending on the traffic, right? So you will ultimately pay by what you're using, because let's imagine that, I don't know, at 1 a.m. no one is using your server, so it will downscale all of your containers to 0 even. I mean, you could put a minimum amount of containers. And then if suddenly everyone is using your app, you can scale, you can auto-scale to more instances of your app. But the cool thing about this is managed for you, so you don't have to care about all of these things. So what are the prerequisites to deploy everything in Cloud Run? Basically having a Google account, also create a GCP project, and yeah, you have to have a billing account connected to your GCP project, otherwise it won't work. But at the end of the day, you only need to run this command. I mean, you could do it more securely. I think like last talk, it was also focused on Cloud Run. But if you have your backend, only by having this command, running this command, you will be able to deploy your app. Of course, you have to first put everything into a container, I mean, provide a Docker file. But once you solve that, it will be just easy as running this command, and you will have like what we were talking about Cloud Run, that auto-scales everything. So it's really great. Okay, so let's see this in action, more or less. So basically for today, I wanted to present a project that I'm currently doing. I'm going to maybe zoom a little bit. Is this fine? Or yeah, perfect. So yeah, for this project, I wanted to basically show what are the tools that we can use and how is the structure of a full stack app written in Dart with Flutter and Dart. So basically, we have two different apps. A stock app. This will be an example of having, for example, the app of the stocks in macOS. That basically it needs real-time capabilities because stocks are changing like every second, I guess. So basically, we have the stock backend that is using gRPC. This example is pretty big, so I want to focus, for example, in the proto file that we were discussing. Basically, here we have the model, the message of a stock that only have like the name and the description. And we also have the stock service that exposes a method that is streaming the responses from the server. So ideally, I want to subscribe to different stocks so I can start listening them, but I want that any change that happens in the server can be pushed to the client without needing to continually asking for changes, right? So once we auto-generate everything, we can go to the generated folder. That is not so readable, but here we have all the Dart classes, so we don't have to create it manually. And this is really cool because, yeah, it saves us time. And then we can expose our service. In this case, the stock service that extends from the stock service space that also is auto-generated. And we can have the single method that will receive the stock request with all the stocks that I want to subscribe. And then it will start yielding every result in the stream. So I can start listening in the front end. Okay, so let's test this in Postman really quickly. So I already deployed this, not deployed, but created a container. So we have a container up and running. I think I don't know how to zoom in Postman. Let me see. Yeah, no, it's the same way. Okay. So basically here we are using Postman to connect to gRPC. This is really cool because I didn't actually know that it has support for gRPC. But yeah, you can always use Postman for like either HTTP or WebSockets and also gRPC. So in this case, we are simply using the get stocks by ticker service, and we are sending a list of different stocks that we want to subscribe. And if we invoke the method, you'll see that all of the responses are coming like individually. So that means that the server is streaming like each stock whenever it has like new changes. For the sake of the demo, I'm only using like one time, like sending the stock, but you could have something running that whenever you have a new update on that stock, you can start sending the new response. And if we want to use this, for example, in our Flutter app, it's as simply as going into our main file, and as we saw in the slides, we can establish like a client, in this case, localhost, and the port will be 8080, where we have our Docker container. And yeah, for example, in this case, we are displaying every stock in a list. And whenever someone clicks on the update button, we will get the stocks, and we are basically adding the stocks to a list. This is not like the best practices, I know, but yeah, it was really fast to do it. So we are going to run the app, and in the meantime, maybe I can run it in macOS. And in the meantime, what I can say is that, yeah, I already deployed this to Google Cloud Run. So basically, instead of using localhost, we can use the stock backend URL, sorry, the URL that Cloud Run provide me. So we can also test this in Postman. So here, okay, so here we only have to, let me see. Yeah, there. I think I have to activate the SSL connection so we can have the, let me see, get stock by stickers. Okay, let's go first to the stock app. Okay, and this stocks app is communicating with the Docker container, so that we already have in our machine. So if I do this, yeah, we have everything on a list. So when the server will have other responses, it will communicate to the Flutter app. But if we want to communicate, for example, with the server that we have in Cloud Run, we have to change the base URL and the port. So basically, I can command this and this. And in the stock client, I have to start using a secure connection, okay? So basically, I'm going to rerun again the project. I wasn't able to hit the URL using Postman, so let's see if that works. Maybe it will be because of my internet connection. But if we run the project again, we are hitting the Cloud Run server this time. So hopefully this will work. Let me see. Yeah, this time worked. So if we go back again to Postman, let me see why this wasn't working, because we have the secure connection here. And if we invoke this, yeah, now it's working. I know why it didn't work before. So yeah, this is using, yeah, it's hidden in Google Cloud Run. Let me see if we can get the logs here. So yeah, this will be like the logs that we did it with Postman and Flutter in our, yeah. So here we have the last time. Okay, so moving back to the presentation again, let's see. Here, okay, some conclusions and next steps for this. I would like to say, for example, yeah, that Flutter and gRPC are a perfect combination to create full stack apps in Dart with great performance, particularly thanks to protobuf, because as we saw, this is what made the communication so fast. The messages are going to be lighter, and yeah, basically, in terms of how much speed you can get, if you compare JSON with protobuf, it could be 8 times faster by only using protobuf. Also, by using gRPC, we are going to get cool features such as real-time features that you don't get this in normal REST API, for example. You can also get it from other protocols such as WebSockets or GraphQL, but it's really handy that the way you can implement everything using gRPC. You don't have to manage a lot of things. And then protobuf also, it's really cool because it's language agnostic. So even if you are not, for example, using a full stack app, that it was our case, that we were only using Flutter, Dart. In microservices architectures, it's really handy because if someone is using a service in another language, basically you have that single source of truth that they can start sharing, and they don't have to define like the whole model definition in every language. So this is kind of cool because you don't have to have your models in I know JavaScript and Dart and so on. So yeah, those are some conclusions. For next steps, I'd say that one of the things that I said earlier, that I feel like there isn't so much information or clear information about the protocol. I made a video in the Observable Flutter channel where we basically went in a live coding like from scratch, so we can basically set up the whole example end to end. And I highly recommend to watch that because in our demo we didn't actually see how to do the whole process. Then we have like the docs that are really cool. We have the official ones from Google, but also there are some other docs out there. For example, the gRPC Dart docs that I think are really cool because they cover also things that we did today. For example, the deployment to Google Cloud Run more in depth. Also, I think that they cover how to integrate different databases. So in this case, we didn't saw what happened with a database in the server, but those are in those docs. Also, I wrote a blog about how to build a real-time app using Flutter and gRPC. So I mean, there are also groups where you can find more information, but those are really some next steps that I would recommend to have in mind if you would like to continue seeing some things about gRPC. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for having me here. I guess we have time for the Q&A session. And I really enjoyed to talk here today. Those are my social networks, and if you have any questions, I can answer.